I swear my truck was clean when I left the house this morning, but it is not clean anymore. Hello and good morning. How you doing? I hope you're doing well. It's Phil Thatch, and today I'm in the Cohutta Wildlife Management Area in North Georgia, and I've come to a waterfall called Jigger Creek Falls, Upper Jigger Creek Falls, I think it is. And it's about a 10-mile drive once you get off of paved roads. It's about a 10-mile drive on this old forest road to get here. It's been raining a lot, but the rain has just stopped. So I think I'm going to have the best flow I've ever had here at this waterfall. The last time I came to this waterfall, I used my Canon R7, my first Canon R7, and I slipped and fell and hit my tripod on the way down and destroyed that camera. So I'm a little nervous about being here, to be honest with you. But the flow is looking great, so that's good. And I've never been here in the spring. I've always tried to come in the fall. So there's a lot of nice color. It's kind of early spring, and there's a lot of bright green in the area. So that should be pretty cool. Let's see what I can do. Today I'm going to be working with my old Nikon D800, and I've only brought one lens, the 24-70 f2.8, and I've brought my Case Revolution magnetic color-coded filters today. Well, the rain is back. I don't know if you can see the sprinkles on my lens hood, and that's one of the things I really like about this 70-200 2.8 is it has a huge lens hood, and I really don't like that from a packing things in my camera bag point of view, but in this rain, it is keeping the water off my front element. I do have the Case Revolution color-coded magnetic circular polarizer filter on the front there, and I actually took the lens hood off and turned it to where I wanted it, and then put the lens hood back on to keep everything dry. This is such a beautiful little waterfall, and like I say, this is the best flow I've ever had, and it's still not overflowing. It's still not a massive flow, but there's no shortage of flow. And I'm making shots at f11, 1/2 a second, ISO 100. I've got the circular polarizer dialed to where it's mostly polarized, but not completely polarized. If it's all the way polarized, you lose a lot of depth. Woo! I'm having to kind of balance on the top of a rock. I forgot my Dunlop boots that I love so much, so I've already gotten my feet wet to get here. But I'm standing on top of a rock, so I'm not just standing in the cold water. But anyway, with the circular polarizer, if you turn it too polarized, then it takes out all the depth. I like to get most of the polarization on it, but not 100%, so there's still a little bit of sheen on some of the rocks, and it gives the photo more depth. I had some blinkies at f11. I'm still at 1/2 a second, but I stopped it down to f13. So let's take an f13 shot. 2-second timer, and there we go. Okay, here's my first shot. This is a 24mm shot, 1/2 a second, and I ended up using the f10 shot. I shot at f10, f9, f11, a bunch of different apertures as the light changed, but it was the f10 shot that I liked the best. And this is, of course, with the Case Revolution circular polarizer filter, and I thought it turned out pretty nice. There's not a whole lot of compositions at this waterfall, but I'm going to move around and try to find as many as I can. I like these rhododendron over here on the right-hand side of the frame, and with it being spring, I was hoping they were going to be blooming, but they were not in bloom, unfortunately. It got just a little bit brighter. These clouds are constantly changing, so I put the 3-stop neutral density filter on top of the circular polarizer, and I opened the aperture up to f8, and then I made a couple of shots at, I think, 0.8 seconds. I'm definitely taking advantage of this belt loop mount Case Revolution filter pouch today. It's working really good for me. Okay, here is the shot at f8 with the 3-stop neutral density filter on and a little bit longer shutter speed, 0.8 seconds instead of 1/2 a second. Another 24mm shot, and this one I did not crop to 16:9. I thought it turned out pretty nice. Maybe 0.8 seconds might have been a better shutter speed than 1/2 a second, but I didn't realize that until now. So most of my shots are at 1/2 a second today. This is another shot that has the 3-stop neutral density filter on. This is 1.3 seconds, f7.1, 24 millimeters. I like the way this one turned out as well. Pretty happy with the shots with the neutral density filter on there. Maybe I should have kept it on longer today. So now I've moved up just a little bit closer, and I've taken the 3-stop neutral density back off, just the polarizer now. The rain is kind of coming and going, and I've got a shot framed up at a half a second, f13, and there's this boulder right here in the foreground that'll be in the bottom left of the frame that I kind of like in this shot. I'm not going to focus stack it. I'm focusing about halfway up the waterfall, so hopefully the boulder and the waterfall will both be in focus at f13. This is a half a second f13 with only the circular polarizer, another 24 millimeter shot. And this is the boulder that I was kind of hoping would be a foreground interest. And it looked really nice at the time, but in this shot, it's kind of cluttery. Really the whole left-hand side of the waterfall, this area right here is kind of junky looking. I actually don't mind this tree. I think it's kind of beautiful, and this one, but some of this mess right in here is not so great. In this shot, I'm zoomed into 32 millimeters, kind of the same composition, but it does take some of the clutter out of the left-hand side of the frame. So this one I could not make into 16 by 9, where this one I could make it into a 16 by 9 shot. But I think overall I probably like this second shot zoomed into 32 millimeters better of beautiful Jigger Creek Falls. I've moved over to the left a little bit now, and I've got this composition framed up that has a nice looking log. It's a small log, maybe 6 or 8 inches in diameter, but it has some moss on it, and it has some kind of freshly dug into looking spots that has some nice bright colors. And it's in my foreground, kind of in the bottom left, and then the waterfall kind of goes down the frame like this to the right. But it starts, this waterfall kind of zigzags. It starts going this way, and then it turns and goes this way all the way out of the frame. I shot this one, I'm still at a half a second, and I'm kind of bouncing back and forth between f13 and f14 as the light changes, using just the circular polarizer filter now. This shot is 28 millimeters, f14. It's a half a second, and this is the log in the foreground that I was talking about in the video clip. It's got moss on it, and it has some kind of freshly busted open looking area. So lots of color there, but there is just a lot of mess in this side of the frame. Otherwise, I like this shot pretty much. And then the next shot is kind of the same composition, but I zoomed it back to 24 millimeters, which shows even more mess in this area of the frame. I really was focusing in on this log while I was in the field, but the mess below it kind of takes away from what I thought the log added. And this is the first shot that kind of has some of these trees up here, these fresh leaves showing, and I kind of concentrated on that in the future. As you can see, the D800 is completely soaked, but look at my front element and my circular polarizer filter. Because of that huge hood, it's completely dry. And also this lens has a kind of a, see how the front element moves as you zoom? The part of the front element that sticks out is covered by the lens hood, so it doesn't get wet. The pumping part doesn't get wet. This old lens is pretty doggone good. Rain's coming down a little bit more now. It's raining hard enough now that I regret leaving my rain jacket in the truck. But I've moved a little bit further to the left, and in this shot I'm concentrating on the waterfall, of course, but also these trees in the foreground. There's some beautiful spring growth leaves, early young leaves in these trees up high, and hopefully I'm capturing them in this shot. I've made some shots at 24 millimeters, and I've made some more kind of zoomed in. And once again, circular polarizer, 1/2 a second, ISO 100, and moving around from f13 to f14 depending on how the light changes, because it is constantly changing as the clouds move around. So this is the last shot of the day, and It is 24 millimeters, 4/10 of a second, f/14, ISO 100. And this may be my favorite shot of the day, even though there is a lot of mess in this area of the frame. I still like the way it looks. I just love the way the light is coming through and hitting these bright colored young leaves on these trees. And I even don't mind this tree that's in the foreground. It has a lot of character, and everything seems to be pretty well in focus at f/14. My focus point, I think, was right around in here somewhere, but it does have things much closer, like this tree in focus, and it even appears to be in focus all the way back here in the back, or close enough to in focus. So maybe my favorite shot of the day, I don't know. You can tell me which one you like the best, or maybe you don't like any of them. Who knows? I like this one. Thanks for joining me today at the beautiful Cohutta Wildlife Management Area in Murray County, Georgia. I hope you enjoyed this. If you did, reach down, give me a thumbs up. That helps me out a bunch. Subscribe and hit the bell if you want to see some more. And as always, I hope to see you in my next video. Bye-bye.